If I had my own VRBO and it was my furniture, how does it make you and Natalie feel going back to vacation, knowing that other people have been in your house?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Chris and Melissa Lombardo podcast. From real estate to lending to landscaping to construction and everything in between, this is an exciting podcast that digs into everything home related, including products used in the industry. We have special guests every week who are professionals in the home industry, giving our listeners exciting insider information. Let's sit back, relax, and dig in. This is the Chris and Melissa Lombardo podcast. Hey everyone, this is Chris and Melissa Lombardo with the Chris and Melissa Lombardo podcast. We are joined here with Grover Greer of Fairway Mortgage Company. Grover, how you doing?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me back.
Good. We wanted you to join us to talk a little bit about house hacking and home equity, things that you're seeing in the lending mortgage side of things with house hacking.
Yeah, I'd love to. One of the primary things I think people can do right now is equity is at an all-time high, especially in Colorado, right? Like we've had a great boom over the last few years that we've seen house values go up, and a lot of people do have equity, and there's an opportunity now that I think you'd agree with, that it's called house hacking. Basically, you have some options within your home to go find another property, right? Whether you want a new primary residence and to convert your current primary into a rental, or if you want to access equity, which is at an all-time high in another way, you can pull a home equity line and then start looking at different things like VRBOs, investment properties, and things like that. So we can dive into all those as we kind of go here.
Walk us through kind of what is house hacking? What's that mean, that terminology?
If you say you live in your current house, right, and you're outgrowing the home, house hacking would be that you take the current home and you can go ahead and turn it into an investment property. When you're leaving the departing residence, as a lender, we have the ability to go ahead and use a lease to offset 70% of your payment. So we can offset most of that payment with rent that's supposed to be coming in the future with the lease. And sometimes we'll need first and last month's rent. That usually comes down to underwriter discretion, right? Then you can go out and on a conventional loan, you can go ahead and buy a new home for as little as 5% down. So you can upsize, you can downsize, you can do whatever, but then you have an investment property that you're leaving behind, and you're going ahead and still putting a minimum amount down so that you're not over leveraging yourself as far as giant down payments. Whereas if you went and bought a regular investment property, you're looking at 20, 30% down to get the best terms and all that kind of stuff.
How about being a first-time home buyer? Can you do a house hacking method being a first-time home buyer with FHA?
Yeah. If you haven't used your FHA, say you're in a home that used a 3% down conventional or something like that, and you want to go lower, you can do 3.5% down. Chaffa has programs that you can even get a little bit of assistance if you qualify to buy your second home. So there's a multiple ways we can get you in there for minimum out of pocket. And then also, like I said, if this is something that you're thinking about, you can think about it in advance and look at getting a home equity line and things like that and slowly enter the market. They don't want you to vacate the property right away after pulling a home equity line, but if you get one in place, it's always a good idea, in my opinion, on the departing residence to have that HELOC in place while your equity's high, even if you're not using it, because if you do convert it to a rental, it's an easy way to get access to your equity for any emergencies or anything like that with the property.
So for using the house hacking method, Grover, purchasing that second property, is it considered then to be a secondary residence? And does that accrue the high interest rates that we typically see when you're buying a second home?
If you're technically moving into it, if you're absolutely not technically, if you're moving into it and you're going to live there, no, it's your primary residence, you can get the low rate. So that's another cool part of this is if you do the definition of house hack, a lot of people have rates in the 2s and the 3s, maybe the 4s, but they have these great rates on these properties. By vacating it and buying another one that you're going to live in, you get to keep that super low rate on an investment property that you're never going to probably see again for an investment property. And then you get a primary residence rate on your new place. And that follows the lower down payment options and all that kind of stuff.
How about some standard rules for house hacking? Are there any obligations or things to look out for when you're house hacking?
I think it's a great question, honestly. The biggest thing is this. If you don't have any major changes in your family, you outgrew the house, had a kid or something like that, right? Got divorced, anything like that. I always tell people that the house that you're sitting in right now, you should be in for 12 months, make 12 payments. Then an underwriter is not going to raise an eye when you move on to the next property, right? If it's below that, it can cause a little bit of a red flag. Can we get through that? In most cases, yes, but they really like to see a good reason why you called this a primary residence and you're already launching off to another one. After 12 months, technically you're clear, so they're not even going to bat an eye at it, and you're going to be able to go ahead. So I have a client that bought a duplex. We did a duplex on an FHA loan with 3.5% down. They rented the other side of it. He's been in there a year. I think it's in May. I just talked to him the other day. So in May, he's looking to make that 12 payments. Then he wants to go find another duplex. He's going to do a 5% conventional on the next one. But well, they actually have a little bit more down, but he's going to keep going down the line on hitting these duplexes. So now, that's the biggest thing, is that 12-month being your primary residence, then move. Again, unless you've outgrown it, divorce, changing job, changing circumstance, that we can explain to an underwriter, like, look, he used to work in Aurora, now he works in Boulder, you know what I mean? It's an hour commute every day. Then we can go to him and say, look, this is why we're doing it this way.
Wonderful. So as far as the house hacking process goes, so you talked about using equity to purchase another home to, downsize or to increase the size. What about if you're looking at opportunities to purchase another property for VRBO purposes or something like that?
Good question. I mean, VRBO is awesome. I personally have one. It does great. So what we're doing there is I believe you want to access your equity, right? Like leverage your equity and then leverage it on another property. So I can speak from experience, because this is what I did personally. We pulled a home equity line on our primary residence, right? We pulled the 10% down that we wanted to put on a place in Grand Lake. We took and bought it on a conventional 10% down. And now we go up there when we want to go up there, but we're short-term renting it, and it's generating income for us. So that is another attractive option when your equity is at all-time high. Maybe you don't want to move. Maybe you like your house. Maybe you feel comfortable at your house. Looking at the VRBO option is very cool, and it's great to have a place that you want. If you want to go to the mountains, you can go do it, but you can also have it pay for itself. I mean, honestly, we've been doing so well, it's paying for both of our mortgages. We're getting so much rent out of it. You gotta deal with the wear and tear, but that is a very attractive option to me. I don't think people know the secondary market in the mountains in Colorado was worse than the primary market down in the metro. It was super hard to get a home there for a couple of years. It's because we saw cash showing up from other states, different things like that. Well, it's slowed down, and there's a lot of opportunity up there to take advantage of it. Why it's a little bit slow, but that VRBO market still seems to be hot. A lot of people love vacationing here. A lot of people really like the short-term rentals over the hotels. So it's a really attractive option.
Grover, I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding the lending side of things when they're getting into a VRBO, taking cash out on their primary residence, so pulling some equity out, and then going and getting another loan for the VRBO property. How does that work? Do they have to qualify for both properties? How do you look at that as a lender?
Yeah, good question. So that's the harder part. We talked about house hacking, how I can offset the departing residence with a lease. Short-term rental, it's not the same thing. So you're going to have to be able to qualify for your primary residence, for your home equity line, and for the new property. So you are going to have to be able to hit all three on your debt to income ratio, because you're not, what they look at to be able to count VRBO things down the road is what is on your taxes, right? The performance, right? It's because a lease is a legally binding contract that you can take and get money and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good question, and that's the biggest difference. The other biggest thing to be aware of, you can call it a second home, or you can do 10% or more down, but you really have to, it's a very gray area. And the best way it was ever explained to me, the intent has to be that if you're calling it a second vacation home instead of an investment property, that your intent is, yes, my family's going to be there as much as I can. While it's vacant, we are going to make some money. But my intent is, like my home in Grand Lake, our intent is that we want to be up there as much as we can. But life takes over. We can't always get up there. So why not make a little bit of money on it while we're not there? We're paying utilities and all that stuff. So that's a good question, because you would need to, on a short-term rental like that, qualify for all three payments. We can't offset the payment like we can if you're departing a residence or something like that.
And when you're looking at qualification, Grover, as a lender, you can't use potential income on that property, can you? Because no income has been made yet if you're looking at it as a VRBO.
Right, exactly. So that's the issue. Like
Mhm.
it's just, you're walking into it and you got to be able to be hit with all three payments. So that's the harder one to qualify for of the two scenarios we've talked about. If you're departing it, I can take a year lease, whatever you're renting it out for, we use 70% of that number, offset your mortgage payment. And so that helps people, boom, boom, boom. That's why it's kind of a hack, right? Like you're putting low down on the next one, you're offsetting the first one, rinse, repeat type of thing. On the VRBO, it's tougher because you're gonna get hit with your primary, the HELOC, which is an interest-only payment that we have to hit you with, but you have to qualify for that, and then the other part. Now, you don't have to take a HELOC if you have the cash, but we are talking about accessing equity, so that's how you would access the equity for it.
So
Yeah.
as far as accessing equity, we mentioned purchasing another property as another way of buying a primary residence, renting out previous VRBOs. What are some other ideas that homeowners can use as far as what would they use their home equity for in this case?
Well, I mean, both of us are recently familiar with this. I think a very fun thing that can be a little stressful, as you guys know. You could access equity to remodel the house you're in. You know what I mean? And there's multiple ways to do that. You can do a home equity line. Those rates are up, and stuff like that. There are rehab loans, you know what I mean, that you can do as a refinance. So maybe your home is a little bit down for your neighborhood and stuff like that. We can do a rehab loan, access the equity, have the appraisal after all the work's done, and you can redo your kitchen, your backyard, your basement, whatever the case may be. So it's a case-by-case basis how you access that equity. But home improvements, I think it's good to contact someone such as yourself before you do those home improvements. Make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck on your upgrades. You know what I mean? Unless that doesn't matter to you. But if you are trying to increase the value of our home, talk to a professional real estate agent. Say, here's what I'm thinking. What do you think will get me the most bang for your buck? So a very attractive option, and one that a lot of people are doing, is the home renovation. Another one, you're seeing these rates go up, right? And the big talk is always the Fed raises rates, the Fed raises rates. Well, people think that's mortgage rates. It's not. What that is that's short-term debt. That's your credit card debt. That's your, loans like that. So as you see these interest rates coming up, we're seeing a lot of people access equity to consolidate debt and press the reset button on some things they have going on. So those are the two biggest things I see people accessing equity to use their money for outside of buying other properties.
Perfect. I want to step back to the VRBO investment opportunity. What about
He's
crossing?
thinking about vacation right now.
I am. What about crossing state lines? I want to go buy a property in Arizona, Florida, California. How does that work? Can you help with that, being a lender, a mortgage broker here in Colorado?
Yeah, we're licensed. I mean, I'm licensed in, I think, 12 states, but Fairway itself is in all 50 states. So we have great loan officers all around. I always say, like I said, if you're turning it into a true vacation home, find one you want to go to as much as you can. I just recently helped my cousin and her husband buy a beautiful place in Florida. They get out there as much as they possibly can, but then they short-term rental it when they don't. So find the destination that you want to, and there's a lot of opportunity out there and a lot of cool places to explore. So no, you're not limited to the Colorado mountains. The first step is contacting someone such as myself, and they should still be contacting you as a realtor in Colorado since they trust you and know you, because you guys can find them great realtors that you know and trust within your network. You know what I mean? Because you don't know what you don't know going to another state. So you still want to work with people that you trust in the real estate world and that are going to have your best interest in mind.
I think one thing that kind of scares people also is the unknown, right? Of the hot water heater going out, something breaking in the house. What, as an experienced investor, as an experienced landlord, what do you put away for things that come up like that? Do you take 5 to 10? I usually tell people 5 to 10% of each month's rent. You put that away, stack it away a little bit. so that if something does happen where you need to replace a roof or a hot water heater goes out, you have that cash stacked away. What's your philosophy on that?
No, I think so. And the other thing you got to watch out is taxes, right? So basically, we put about 40% away to cover taxes and any incidentals like that, and just a straight savings account. Doesn't go to our financial plan or anything like that, so that we're not in any market. It's just sitting there cash. So when we need to access it, we can pull it over. So I would say, we're about 30% of that is we're looking at paying taxes with, and 10%, like you said, we're just holding for a rainy day in case something comes up. The house we got is pretty new, but you just never know. That's how houses work, right? And then you got people that you don't know. We've been lucky to have great renters, but people are a little rougher on other people's properties and different things like that. And you don't want the place to be out of commission long, so you want to be able to set it and get going. Another thing is always, if you take a home equity line to do it, a lot of people think you only take the home equity line for what you need. Say you need $50,000 down on a $500,000 property. Well, maybe they can give you a $200,000 line or a $300,000 line. Take that whole line. You don't have to use it. There's no negatives in taking it. You can just use the 50% now, but that also gives you another, emergency fund out there. But I think 5 to 10 is good advice, because you just don't know what you don't know. If you are going into another state or anywhere, I mean, ours is only 2 hours away. We have someone amazing there. We went through a management company to get it rented and all the websites, but our cleaner herself kind of takes a property manager style thing. She's in it. I found a great handyman in the area that I can count on pretty quickly, so that I'm not having to take a 5 hour round trip if, we're on well water. So one day they ran the bath too much, or at the bottom of the well, the filter was clogged. So this guy ran to my house for me and changed the filter real quick, saved me 5 hours of driving. So think about things like that, and that's where you want to, really talk to a good local realtor that has some contacts for you. If you got a place in Florida, you don't want to have to fly to Florida if there's an issue. You want the place to keep running. But I think I personally like a little bit more, 10%, but 5% you can probably get away with.
Great. That was my next question for you, Grover, was if you used a property management company for your property.
We went through Evolve. It was a little quirky getting it set up, but it's kind of nice. They interface with all. Number one, the client pays the Evolve fee, so we don't pay them. The client does. They get us on all the major websites: VRBO, Airbnb, Booking.com, all those. They handle pretty much all that stuff. They do offer to set you up with a cleaner. They do offer to set you up with handyman, all that stuff. We just happen to know somebody up there that we had already trusted that weren't in their systems. They do actually offer to set a lot of that stuff up. I would check out who they're offering, and then I would also check out who your realtor would know in the area or different things like that. But we've been very happy with Evolve all in all. We've had a couple quirks we've had to work through just getting it listed and getting it up, and we wanted the notes to say this, that, but they sent the photographer. The photographer was great, did a great job getting the house like staged out right with our furniture and stuff. So that's what we do. And like I said, they pay the Evolve fee, the client does. They also pay the cleaning fee, right? And the cool thing is Evolve gives that to us. We pay it to the cleaner. And then that'll be another write-off because it looks like income to us, but we're giving it directly to her. So, it's kind of nice that those fees are offset by whoever's taking over the house for the weekend.
Awesome. So this is kind of a funny question, but I have to ask you because I think about this. If I had my own VRBO and it was my furniture, how does it make you and Natalie feel going back to vacation, knowing that other people have been in your house, right? And on your furniture?
My aunt has this problem. She's talking about selling a place, I think, in Frisco because she just can't get over it. At first, it was a little weird, right? But we have it professionally cleaned before we go, okay? And then in our owner's closet, we personally have our own sheets. People don't sleep in our sheets, like our duvet comforters, all that kind of stuff. And then we have blankets and dog covers for all the furniture and stuff. So it's different, but it's not something. And I'm way OCD about this. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, right? Like the weird stuff is like you'll be looking for a pan that you've always kept here and someone put away over here because they were doing your dishes, right? But all in all, it hasn't been bad. Like I said, they pay the cleaning fee, so every time we go, it's professionally cleaned by our cleaner before we get there. So the carpets are vacuumed and cleaned, the hardwood is mopped, the counters are clean. And then we text her when we're coming up. She knows to get our sheets on, Holden sheets on, all that stuff. So we're only using our own stuff to sleep in, all that kind of stuff. So I thought that it would be worse, but I've adjusted to it, and I will say it's not bad at all.
Wait, how do you feel about that? Someone sleeping in your.
I mean, it's no different than going and staying in a hotel, right? I mean,
That's
no
what I told
different
myself.
than
I was like, dude, you've stayed in a million VRBOs, so why
Yeah.
would it be any different? But there was something about, because at first we were like, we don't want a VRBO. We're gonna just let friends and family stay there. So we told everyone, you can stay there, but don't sleep in our bed. But then it was like, Holden has lacrosse all the time. We can't get up there as much as we like. And I've wrapped my head around it, but I am insistent that I have my own sheets. No one else is in my sheet. We have our own covers, like stuff like that. But so far, so good. Knock on wood. We're about 4 months into doing it. So far we've had good people stay there that really seem to take a little pride in the house, and stuff like that. So that's been nice.
That's good.
I had to ask because I'm sure other people wonder.
It's a legitimate question. It was a legitimate debate in our house.
Some people may not think about it.
Yeah.
You may just jump right into the VRBO thing and then freak out. Who knows?
Right. And the other thing for me is I have pinball games, like I have all this stuff, but you're insured, for damages and different things like that. So if anything major did happen to a couch or anything like that, they'll replace it. You know what I mean? But it took a second to wrap our heads around, but I would say it's getting easier. You know what I mean? Obviously, you want to hit Powerball, just pay it off and call it yours, but that's just not how it works all the time.
Okay.
Grover, another opportunity for investment is house flipping, right? So, how's this all incorporate with flips as far as the lending side, lending on a flip and then selling it within a year before you've lived in it at all?
If it's within a year, I mean, then you would probably do a loan with me where we would do an investment property loan, put the money down. You're not as worried about the rate then. So we do the minimum down with mortgage insurance, stuff like that. You get in, you get out. If it's going to be a short term thing where it's like 3 or 4 months, you're usually looking into like hard money lenders. You know what I mean? That we can set you up with, I have contacts and different things like that. But only thing I'll say about flips is like when people get good at them, they do great at it, but you don't know what you don't know. So you really got to dig in with some people on I've seen people think that they're going to do it for budget X and it turns into budget Y, and budget Y can really knock out all your profit, right? Like, we've all watched the shows, they pull up the carpet and there's a huge issue that they didn't account for. Well, that stuff really happens. So you really want to be, it's almost like starting your own business. I would interview people who have done it before and really get good at, like, what are the pitfalls? What do I need to look at? If you're budgeting 100,000, how much over that do you give for just stuff that comes up as you're doing, a whole remodel of a house? But it is definitely a good option to access your equity and go get those opportunities because they're out there, right? There's I hear a lot like, oh, we're looking at 450, but everything's super beat up. And I tell them they can do a rehab loan, but those are the opportunities out there for a flipper to jump in and really take advantage. But like I said, you really want to make sure you know what you're doing. The biggest thing, like my brother once told me, he wanted to flip a house on his own. I was like, dude, it's going to take you, by the time you're done, you're going to lose all profits if it's just you. You know what I mean? You want to get a crew in there that can really just knock it out, turn it and burn it. Time is money on those things, especially if you're doing a hard money loan.
Well, I think too, they have to be realistic with kind of the end game too, because we've sold a couple flips on the buy side. We've helped clients buy, and you can tell the really good flips versus the not so good flips, Absolutely. Right? Someone who cut corners on budget finishes and things like that. And while you as an investor or flipper might think, oh, they'll never know, or they won't notice this, they notice. Right. And so, yeah, you do have to be realistic with your budget and what, is actually going to look good and sell for high dollar too.
Right. Past inspections and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're at a stage in the market where you're able to inspect a home and different things. So you're going to check your work and make sure it's right and all those kinds of things. The last thing you want is a flip sitting on your books. You know what I mean? Like, So like I said, I see people do it. I know realtors that are very good at it. But I would definitely dig deep in talking to people about, kind of like what you just said, like as a buyer's agent, what are you telling your buyers to look for if you know it's a flip? Little things like that are going to save you a lot of money in the end doing something like that.
So in our second episode of this podcast, we talked with former Colorado Rockies pitcher Christian Bergman. He moved from single family investments to multifamily. Can you do multifamily?
Yeah, conventional loans do up to 4, and then we have options beyond 4. If you're looking at like apartment buildings and stuff like that, there's a lot of opportunity in, you're looking at more commercial style loans, but we can help out with that as well. And those are good opportunities. You know what I mean? Like I said, first time home buyers don't know, but on a 2-unit home, FHA will let you put 3.5% down. So think about getting a duplex for 3.5% down on an FHA loan, living in it for a year and then moving on. You know what I mean? And that, I mean, to me, that's the way to set your real estate portfolio up, is get a multi-unit, you know what I mean? And have two doors going, but we can do up to 4 through FHA and conventional style loans. And then from there, we look at different portfolio products, and then depending on how big, it may even turn into a commercial style loan.
Grover, we really appreciate you, man. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we love meeting with you every time. We want to get you back on here. I know this is our second podcast with Grover. We definitely want to do this more often with you, your wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you.
This is a lot of fun. You two are the best. And so, this was great topic.
And that's all on the Chris and Melissa Lombardo podcast. As always, we appreciate you joining in with us. If you have a real estate question or you have a topic that you'd like to listen to in a future episode of ours, drop us a line below, or we're always available on chrisandmelissalombardo.com. Thanks for joining in. We will talk to you soon.